10,000!
Let's go, Caps! Let's go, Caps! Let's go, Caps!
This is the Washington Capitals MinuteCast.
Hello and welcome in to the Washington Capitals MinuteCast, where your Washington Capitals get back into the win column and they beat the Winnipeg Jets 4-3. Let the good times roll. It feels so good to get back in the win column. When they keep losing those games, game after game, you can kind of start to lose hope and lose sight of what the Capitals are all about. But last night was just a really feel-good game. You saw great production. You saw goals out there from Orlov. You saw the one in overtime from Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin, and Protas. So things were going really well for the Washington Capitals last night. There's not a whole lot to complain about. Vitek Vanacek played pretty well. He had 3 goals. He made 30 saves on 33 shots. So that's good for a .909 save percentage. It's, like I say, nothing really to complain about there. I think that Vitek, if you're going between Vitek and Samsonov, is emerging again, no surprise there, as the number 1 goalie for the Washington Capitals. And that's good. I think that if he can keep going forward and playing that same way, there is no doubt in my mind that he is the goalie that is going to push them on their push into the playoffs and hopefully a Stanley Cups. So the Capitals now 22-9-9. That's good for 53 points. Carolina and New York are essentially tied for first place. They both have 54 points. So, I mean, things are still neck and neck. There's no time to freak out. There's no time to despair. The Washington Capitals are still in the hunt, and I think they'll end up winning and being in first place in the Metropolitan when it's all said and done. Once all the players get healthy and everything starts clicking, I think that the Capitals will be on top and they will reign supreme of the Metropolitan Division. And I'm seeing here, I'm taping this in the morning here, the day after the game, that Washington's Dmitry Orlov will have a hearing today for kneeing Winnipeg's Nikolaj Ehlers. So, I mean, we don't want to be losing another D guy out there. I mean, let's get real. We need to have Dmitry Orlov out there, not only for his defensive game, but also his offensive performance. I mean, Dmitry Orlov's always been kind of a goal-scoring defenseman, and we really need him out there. So let's hope that they have some sympathy for him, or if there is some punishment, it's not that severe. Laviolette on getting an OT win. It hasn't gone without attention. We've been working at it, looking at it, watching stuff. It's nice to get one. It certainly was a power move by Kuzy to attack. It was nice to get one. It took a while. And if you guys didn't get a chance to watch the game, go to NHL.tv or NHL.com, whatever it is now, and watch that goal. It was a pretty goal. You see Kuzy driving down the ice there, and I thought he was going to get that game-winning goal. But that kind of sick move to Tom Wilson was amazing. Like I say, watch that if you can, and it kind of just gets you excited about Evgeny Kuznetsov again. He had that season last year where he was on the block for getting traded, and everyone was like, for his head, let's get rid of him. No, that's not Kuznetsov. He is a great player. I just think he needed to get refocused and realigned and, to remember how to play Capitals hockey. And I think he's doing that, and he's moving right along. Laviolette was a big fan of Protas' game tonight. Awesome. But his work ethic, too. You saw him striding out there. Sometimes we forget how young he is, but you see him in a game like that tonight, and you're like, he could be something. And I don't think Protas was originally slated to even be on the big team this year. I mean, I know he wasn't. I just think it was through injury. We've talked about that in previous podcasts, that injury is sometimes the impetus for these players to get in there. It's the catalyst that gets the team going. And it's all about making the most of your opportunities. And without doubt, I think that Protas is doing that this year. I think you could say the same thing about McMichael and Ferravari. But there's just a lot of good feeling things going on out here with the Capitals, and it's exciting to see that they have these young players that will fill those gaps once some of the older Caps retire, whenever that may be. Eller, we shouldn't need to be down 2-0 to make things happen, especially when you've lost 5 of 6. I'd like to see us start a little better next time. And that's true. I mean, when I was watching the game, I didn't get a chance to watch the game live because I was working. But when I got home and I watched the game, I'm like, oh my God, I looked to the wife. I'm like, they're going to lose this game. They're going to lose another game. And, I wasn't getting ready to push the panic button, but I was making sure that I knew where it was. I'm kidding. But I'm glad that they were able to pull off a win, especially against this Winnipeg team. I've seen the Caps play Winnipeg several times. I've actually gone up to Winnipeg and watched them play. If you haven't had the chance, go up there. It's a great small city up there, and it's a very loud venue. But every time I've gone up and watched the Capitals play, it's a 6-hour drive from where I'm at. They've lost. I don't really think anything about it because sometimes I make the trek. I'll watch them at the Xcel Energy Center in Minnesota, and then I'll just make the 6-hour drive or whatever it is up to Winnipeg. But it's really nice to see that team beat Winnipeg. It's a team that's given the Caps fits over the years. In the beginning of the season, the Jets weren't that great under Paul Maurice, but now under this new leadership here, they're actually pretty decent. And I think that the Jets are going to be a team to look out for this year. I was hoping he would just do it all himself, to be honest. Wilson on Kuznetsov, primary assist on the game winner. But it was kind of like a layup, a slam dunk. He fed it to Wilson, and Wilson was in just the right place, and he slammed it home. And I got to admit, I was screaming. The kids were sleeping. I didn't care. I'm like, yes, they finally won, vindication. So it was a great feeling, and let's hope they can keep riding this forward and keep staying in the win column. And I'm looking back on that footage again as I'm recording this. I got to admit, I'm a fan of the Capitals. I'm a fan of Dmitry Orlov, of course. But if you watch this video back, it looks pretty bad. It looks like Orlov goes in and out goes the knee. It's not looking good for him, I got to say, today. I mean, I hope that something happens and he doesn't have any suspension or anything like that. But I got to say, it looks bad. So I asked for your voicemails and I asked for your comments on Facebook and Twitter. And I reached out to Tyler Cool. I'm sorry if I'm not saying your last name quite correctly, but he hosts the Washington Capitals, the Locked On Washington Capitals podcast. It's a great podcast that he hosts. And I asked him, I said, what are one of the things that the Capitals need to address before the trade deadline? And Tyler says, depth on defense. They have a solid top 4, but they need a bottom pair that can suffice. So he's not going right for the goalie thing. And that's a good perspective from him because he watches all the games. He comments on all the games. So that you can take that to the bank if he says that. And I agree with that. I think that the Capitals do need that depth on defense. So if they could make some acquisitions before the trade deadline, that would be great. And big shout out to Tyler for commenting. I hope he sends us a voice comment so I can put that on the show. Tyler, if you happen to be listening to this show, just go ahead and do that. I sent you the link. And you guys can do that too. I posted on the Washington Capitals MinuteCast Facebook page. I'd love to hear your comments about the Capitals. It doesn't have to be about things they need to address before the trade deadline, but just Caps comments. And we'll play them in a podcast. Isn't that fun to hear your voice on this podcast? I love it. I love hearing from you guys, and it makes doing these podcasts so much fun because I'm a fan just like you guys are. So I have my opinions on the game. But then to be able to hear your opinions, I think that's just really great, and I really enjoy that. But that is the Washington Capitals MinuteCast for today. We'll talk to you guys again next time. Thank you for listening.
Please stop still kicking, and I'll go down swinging. I'd rather die on my feet, never have to live on my knee.
You can find the podcast at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you find your podcast. If you have a moment, please like, rate, and share this podcast and tell your friends about it. It really helps. Thank you for listening.